Hello, Shafiq here. This is the fourth of my vlogs of living and dealing with a mental health condition. So if you haven't seen the previous ones, please go back. They are all structured and there is a structure to them. So thank you for your time. For those who don't know me, it's your first time seeing me. My name is Shafiq Villasanti and I am a coach, author, there you go, empowerment coach, public speaker, and I guess blogger if you like. About dealing with the issues and talking about how to overcome obstacles in your life and create that best version of yourself. But most importantly, that is born out of me being a survivor of 2 suicide attempts. And yeah, I said it as flippantly as saying, could we change the channel on the TV? I am the survivor of 2 suicide attempts, my first one being in 2006 and my second one being in 2016. And for some reason, both attempts didn't succeed. I like to think it's down to me finding my true vocation in life, which is doing what I do today, which is empowering people, making them overcome those adversities, and sharing my life experiences so people don't have to go down the route that ultimately I tried to take on those 2 separate occasions. So today we're going to be talking about what happens when you get that diagnosis. What happens when Shafiq Charles Villasanti was diagnosed with suffering from chronic depression and anxiety? Those were the reasons that were put down on my sick notes for work. Yes, we will be talking about work-related issues. And they were written on the second attempt for the best part of a year, because it took me well over a year to kind of deal with what was going on. And most importantly, for me, it was dealing with that label that I was given. I was suffering from chronic depression and chronic anxiety. And we'll talk about how that actually shows itself living with it day to day. So in 2006, on my first attempt, I was diagnosed with depression. And that depression ultimately led in me wanting to take my life. And I attempted it, but it failed. And those 10 years in between my first and second attempt, even though I was diagnosed with having this in the past, I hadn't dealt with it. It wasn't dealt with. I had been given antidepressants. I went back to work after 4 weeks, and I was told basically to take my foot off the gas. Well, as you'll know from previous videos, my reason for working so hard was because we'd had our first child, and I was the hunter-gatherer going out working in long hours, so my wife could bring up our children. So taking the foot off the gas didn't really work. I was terrified about leaving a business in an industry that I knew. I didn't have much confidence in myself. Obviously, if you're suffering from depression and anxiety, you're not going to have much of that, are you? You're going to have a very low self-opinion of yourself. So the fact it wasn't dealt with, and the fact that I was still in the same business and I was working up the ladder, taking more promotions, working longer hours, so on and so forth, of course it's going to rear its head in. 1 in 4 of us in the UK suffer with mental health conditions. Now, when I say mental health conditions, let's just put this right, with low mental health, poor mental health, because we do, as I said before, have good and bad mental health. And this whole word that we use when somebody takes their life, the S word, is just a label. You know, it's not the S word that takes the life. It is the low mood, the low and poor mental health that leads to us taking such drastic actions. So let's be clear on that one, as I would say. And why I can talk about it, because I'm the survivor of 2 attempts. So I know exactly the triggers. I know exactly how you feel. I know exactly how I've tried to overcome it over those 10 years and how I failed in overcoming it over those 10 years. And most importantly, over the last 3 years, how I've turned my life around to being in a fantastic place, to being in such good mental health, to being just passionate about my life, and so forward thinking that nothing will take me off my stride. So when I got first diagnosed in 2006, I was pretty much living with it all the way up to 2016. And to me, it was, this will be no surprise, it was a taboo. It was a taboo even. It was a stigma. It was a label that I didn't want to share with people. And by not sharing it with people, how was I ever going to remove myself away from those negative triggers that ultimately lead to it? Negative triggers for me, which was the industry that I was in, the hours that I was working, the manner in which I was spoken to, even stuff like how I spent my time watching TV that was rubbish, that was no good for mental health, aggressive TV, dramas, crime scene investigations, all this sort of stuff that does play with your mental health, So because I hadn't dealt with it, I was just carrying on living the life that had led to my first attempt. The diagnosis was a tough one because, we're men. I mean, I've always thrown weights about, I've always been in the gym. I'm an ex-PT. Working out has always been a big part of my life, and I still maintain to do it. I still maintain it, as it were. So how could this big burly guy, possibly suffer with mental health? He's got a beautiful wife, he's got a beautiful family, he's in a nice part of the world, he's got a good career, he works for a world leading company, one of the biggest companies in the world, dare I say, especially in its field, or if not the biggest, or I did anyway. How can I suffer with poor mental health? It's going to happen, isn't it? We all have our frailties, and not every one of us can just shoulder the burden of such responsibilities. And when I say that, I don't say that lightly, because I mean, working 18-hour days, 85-hour weeks, month after month, is going to take its toll on anyone. So my dealing with that first diagnosis, in 2006, was to say, okay, I had 4 weeks off of work. I went back to work with a back condition, so we say. The HR said it was a back condition, so no one got to know about it. But let's be honest, people knew about it. Nothing is completely confidential in the workplace. And I just threw myself into more and more work. I felt by working harder, by working longer hours, by seeing more money in my paycheck would make me better. But in actual fact, I was just burning out. And over those remaining 10 years, I pretty much just burnt myself out to the point where my second attempt on my life in April 2016 was a horrendous affair. The lead up to it was just awful. The week leading up to it was, looking back now, I'd lost the plot. That last day, and there were both attempts on both Fridays, that last Friday's attempt was terrifying for me, absolutely terrifying. I couldn't see it at the time, like I can now retrospectively, because I was confused. I was in a muddle. There was such a blur in here, and the decision to do what I attempted to do was so instantaneous. I didn't even think about it. I just said, that's what I'm going to do. I've had enough of this. I can't see this any longer. I can't see myself doing this any longer. I'm letting everyone down, and I did it. And then when I got that, I survived. And then obviously when I got the sick notes, all that sort of stuff, and then it's written again. But this time it was chronic anxiety and chronic depression, because I had a pre-existing condition where I'd been taking prescription drugs for a while, on and off, and I'd gone back on them even though they'd made no difference over the 2 months before my last attempt. For some reason, it rung true with me. You can't keep running, Shafiq. You can't keep batting off the stigmas and batting off the taboos. This is you. You have to deal with it. So those diagnoses then all of a sudden came true and had a sense of credibility. And I had to be accountable to it. So I had to work out myself. So sometimes as we wrap up, because all these vlogs are only 10 minutes long, so you can do them in your lunch break, you can watch them at night, you can watch them when you get back to work, you can watch them on the train. Having that credibility and having that accountability to that diagnosis, most importantly, meant you have to work through this. You can't keep running. I was lucky that I lasted 10 years between attempts, but I knew now that this was my second and last chance. There is no way you can run away from this again, Shafiq. You have to deal with it. And it was scary dealing with it. And there were so many unknowns, and I was terrified, and my wife was terrified. By this time we had 2 children. One was 5 and one was 9. 4 and 9, dare I say. I had a lot more riding on this. And I lost a lot more as well, shall we say, which we'll talk about in later vlogs. But most importantly, those diagnoses are there for a reason. Those diagnoses there have flagged up, and you have to accept them and you have to deal with them. And there are so many ways upon which you can deal with them. And we'll talk about those in later vlogs. So please, as I always say, please like, please share, please subscribe. By more subscribing, by more sharing, by more liking, by more comments, it comes up there through the algorithms on the pop-up page, which means more people share this. And this is all going out for free. If you want to know more about the specifics, I can't talk about it directly, about my attempts in a positive way, in an upbeat way. This is my book of how I overcame it, and obviously there's that credibility there with my story. Have a great day. Thanks for your love and support, and I'll see you all in later vlogs. Cheers, bye.